All right, let's dive into a topic that can feel, well, messy. Business ethics. Some people call it a barrel of worms for a reason. It's complicated, it's tangled, and it affects pretty much everything, from the stuff we buy to the companies we work for. So today, let's see if we can untangle it a little bit.
I want to kick things off with just one number, 90%. Just let that sit there for a second. 90. In the world of business, what on earth could a number that high be? A success rate? Profit margin? Well, the truth is, it's actually a little worrying.
Yep, 90%. That's the percentage of high school students who, in one survey, fessed up to cheating. Now look, this isn't all about wagging a finger at teenagers. The point is way bigger than that. It shows that the ethical lines we're willing to bend and the stories we tell ourselves to justify it start getting drawn really early, and that just sets the stage for the kind of high-stakes pressure you're going to face in the business world.
So, that leads us to the big question, right? What even is business ethics? Is it this rigid, unbreakable moral code, or is it more, flexible, like a set of rules for a game?
Well, you've basically got two camps here, a real clash of ideas. On one hand, you've got this old-school view, the poker analogy. The thinking here, from guys like Albert Carr, is that business is a game, and just like in poker, a little bluffing is expected, right? As long as you're not technically breaking the law, it's all just strategy. But then you have the modern stakeholder view, which is totally different. It argues that ethics is really about doing the right thing even when no one is looking. It says a business has a duty that goes way beyond its shareholders, to its customers, its employees, the whole community.
And this modern view, it actually has a name and a whole framework to go with it, ESG. You've probably heard this acronym thrown around a lot. It stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. And it's basically the scorecard that everyone, customers, investors, you name it, is now using to measure how a company is actually doing on all those bigger ethical issues.
Which brings us to why this is such a big deal right now. For a long time, ethics was seen as this kind of soft topic, something for a philosophy class. Not anymore. It's moved from the classroom right onto the company's balance sheet. It's a critical part of a business's success with very real numbers attached.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, says it all. We're talking about one of the most powerful people in global finance, and he's saying, straight up, that ESG gives everyone the tools to hold companies accountable. When the people controlling literally trillions of dollars start paying close attention, suddenly ethics isn't so soft anymore.
So we've got the what and the why. Now let's talk about the when, as in when it all goes horribly wrong. Because if you look at history's biggest corporate scandals, they almost never happen overnight. It's always a slow slide down a very slippery slope.
Just think about Enron. There wasn't some meeting where executives decided, okay, today's the day we commit massive fraud. No way. It started with tiny compromises, bending a rule here, hiding a small loss there. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, gradual journey into total disaster.
And then you have the Ford Pinto. This is the absolute classic textbook case of safety versus profit. Ford knew there was a major flaw in the gas tank. They actually did the math and calculated that paying out for injuries and deaths would be cheaper than fixing the design. I mean, it's a truly chilling example of an ethical breakdown.
And of course, WorldCom. I love the phrase they used, aggressive accounting. What a fantastic, sterile way to say we were lying our heads off. It's just a euphemism for cooking the books. And it shows you how powerful language can be in masking really, really bad behavior.
This brings us to a super important question. Where do these landmines hide in our everyday jobs? The truth is, they're often disguised by these common justifications and mental traps that make a terrible decision seem, well, pretty reasonable at the time.
Remember Joe Camel? On the face of it, it's just a cartoon mascot for cigarettes. What's the big deal? But the ethical dilemma was staring everyone right in the face. Was this cool, fun character designed to get teenagers hooked on smoking? The public screamed yes, and it completely changed the rules for tobacco advertising.
Oh, this is a classic rationalization, especially for global companies. You hear it all the time. But let me ask you, is there any culture on Earth where people actually enjoy being lied to, or cheated, or sold a dangerous product? Of course not. This is just an excuse, a way to hide behind cultural differences to avoid doing the right thing.
Here's another mental trap we all fall into, the either-or conundrum.
This is what happens when we're under pressure, and we convince ourselves there are only two really extreme options. Think of that famous story of the climber who sees a dying holy man. He frames his choice as, either I help this guy and give up my life's dream of reaching the summit, or I leave him to die and succeed. See how limiting that is? This black and white thinking completely shuts down our creativity to find a better, more ethical third option.
Okay, enough of the doom and gloom. We've talked about what ethics is, why it matters, and all the ways it can go wrong. So let's get to the most important part. How do we actually do it right? How do we build a moral compass to get through these tricky situations?
The good news is there's a framework for this. It's not magic, but it's a super practical checklist for making better choices. You start by just gathering the facts. Then you figure out what the actual ethical problem is. You identify everyone who's going to be affected, your stakeholders. Then, and this is key, you have to look in the mirror and think about your own motives. After that, you think long-term, and finally, you actually talk to the people who will be impacted.
Let's really zero in on that last step for a second. Ask yourself this question. If the answer is no, if you feel like you can't talk about your decision with the people it's going to affect, that's not a red flag. That's a giant, flashing, neon sign telling you to stop. It's maybe the most powerful gut check there is.
And here's the other big one, the time travel test. Will this decision still look good in 5 years, 10 years, 20? A choice that seems smart and easy today could become something you're deeply ashamed of down the road. Thinking about the long game is a fantastic way to pressure test your ethics.
And finally, there's the shareholder test. But really, you can swap out shareholder for customer, employee, your mom, whatever. It's about imagining your actions on the front page of the newspaper. If you wouldn't want people to know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It really is that simple.
So, after all that, are we right back where we started, with Representative Omar Burleson saying that ethics is just a barrel of worms? You know, it's messy, it's confusing, and it's really easy to get lost in the weeds.
But I want to leave you with a different way to look at it. What if we've been thinking about this all wrong? What if ethics isn't a messy problem to be avoided, but is actually your company's most valuable asset? What if building a rock-solid reputation for doing the right thing, especially when it's tough, is the best long-term strategy of all? Now that's something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.